Bill.
Thank you, Senator Abbas. Senator William Kipkemoi Kisang.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I believe the intent of the bill originally was not bad because we had issues in June, and because of the conversation we had at the State of the Nation debate, this is bill is as a result of what happened that time, Honorable Speaker. And I want to report to you, Madam Speaker, that some of us went to school because of Harambes. If you get somebody who is 45 years and above, who is in this house, or outside there, Madam Speaker, most schools at that time, there used to be two types of schools. There was schools done by government, and there were some Harambee secondary schools. Most of our public schools now in the rural setup, Madam Speaker, were called Harambee secondary schools. And those Harambee secondary schools, Madam Speaker, some of them even now are national schools, were built by the community, they were built through Harambee, Madam Speaker, by our parents, selling cows, some selling busi, others selling sheep, and all types of things, Madam Speaker, to ensure that the schools are built. Madam Speaker, I hope with the debate that's going on, the little majority is going to think about this bill, Madam Speaker, because we cannot do as a country without an Harambee, Madam Speaker. Most of our judges also, Madam Speaker, were built through Harambee. Some were done by missionaries who came to the country early, maybe 60s, 50s, and 70s, Madam Speaker. And these missionaries also, the resources they got was as a result of Harambes in their own country, Madam Speaker, because they got maybe charity organizations, and those who are philanthropic enough to contribute. And then the resources came to Kenya, came to Africa, and our churches, our mosques were built as a result of Harambee, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my colleagues have talked about school fees. Most people went to school because of Harambee. I remember when I was going to Form 1, I almost missed going to Form 1, Madam Speaker, because my parents didn't have anything. But because of the community, they said, this is a young man who did, a young boy who did very well, top of his school, and then they decided to contribute. And that time, our school fees was the 1,540, Madam Speaker, and it was not easy to get 1,500 in 1982. So if it was not easy to get 1,500, how about now, when those joining Form 1, they're expected to pay 50,000, 60,000. So, Madam Speaker, basically what I'm saying is, as a leader, as a legislator, Madam Speaker, we are not going to agree to legislate Harambes in our country, Madam Speaker, because many people will be locked out of school, they'll be locked out of colleges, Madam Speaker. CDF has been there from 2004, but it's not been able to, sponsor all the students across the country. That is why one of the senators the other day, Madam Speaker, said, can we collapse all these bursaries from CDF, bursary from county government, bursary by women reps, and from the ministry, we put in one gitty so that we have really free education from ECD up to university. The only way we can agree, Madam Speaker, to regulate fundraising is if we say completely now from nursery to university, education is completely free, Madam Speaker, so that we know those from less fortunate, less privileged families, Madam Speaker, can have education, which is an equalizer, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the state of health in the country, Madam Speaker, you know, in the village, most of our dispensaries, most of our health centers, Madam Speaker, there is no medicine. And because there's no medicine, you'll realize most of our people who get sick will go to private hospitals in the counties. And when they go even to public, they're expected to pay. And when they're expected to pay and they don't have anything, many of them have lost even their pieces of land because of selling to take the kinsmen and women, Madam Speaker, to the hospital. So basically what I'm saying, because of medical expenses, Madam Speaker, will support Harambes. Because of education, Madam Speaker, will support Harambes, Madam Speaker. And because of other issues. Madam Speaker, if you check clause 13, Madam Speaker, of the bill, clause 14, Madam Speaker, it says a person shall not conduct a public fundraising bill unless the person has applied for and obtained a permit in accordance with the provisions of this law, Madam Speaker. You can imagine you have a sick person, the person requires to be discharged because he has gone to the hospital. You need to apply within 14 days. And where will you get this CEC? If we were not able to get a DC who was just within the district, but now this is a CC in charge of a county or a CS in charge of the country, Madam Speaker, it's not possible. And Madam Speaker, one of the clauses here, Madam Speaker, is saying, if you intend to seek for a public office, 3 years before elections, you should not conduct any fundraising, Madam Speaker. How would you know? You know, standing for a seat sometimes is a calling. The community can approach you to stand, and they can approach you 6 months to the election. What will happen if you will have conducted a fundraiser before? It means basically you'll be locked out, and the community will lose a leader who would have come to assist the people, Madam Speaker. You check the fines, Madam Speaker, that if you conduct a fundraiser without a valid permit, Madam Speaker, you can pay a fine of 5 million. How will you pay a fine of 5 million when basically you are looking for resources to release somebody from the hospital or to take a child to the hospital, to school, Madam Speaker? Madam Speaker, basically what I'm saying is when the time comes to vote, Madam Speaker, we are going to reject this bill, and so that we can basically ensure that we continue supporting our people. This is a social call, it's a social rally to ensure that our people are assisted, Madam Speaker. With those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I oppose this particular bill. Thank you.